Welcome to another episode of What Do You Really Think? I'm Buck Sexton, and with me is...
I am Marc Lamont Hill. You know, Buck, I usually feel like I'm the darker one of the group, but you look really tan today. What's going on?
So I kind of fell asleep on the beach without sunblock on. So now I get to be that guy that does a show. Everyone's going to be like, your face is so red. Yes, I got very sunburned. This is what happens if you're a tiny bit hungover in Florida for the weekend. And I was in the shade, but I woke up in the sun, if you know what I mean, and that's not good.
Was your mask covering certain areas? I feel like maybe the nose and mouth area doesn't look as tanned.
No masks here, good sir. And down in Florida, I will have you know, it is a state where there is mask freedom, damn it, and I'm very excited about it. But we are more excited to have another sane voice on the show this week, one who is known, I'm sure, to many in this audience, but also known particularly to Mr. MLH himself. Mark, why don't you give folks a little Ben Ferguson intro courtesy of Mr. Marc Lamont Hill.
Yeah, Ben Ferguson is my good friend and my TV nemesis. You know,
that's right.
It's so funny. The person who I get asked about the most on TV, without a question, other than Bill O'Reilly, is Ben Ferguson, because Ben and I have debated on at least 3 networks. My first TV hit ever was on MSNBC, debating Ben Ferguson.
Really?
And yeah. And we ended up debating 2 days in a row. The first day, he just completely slaughtered me. I don't know. I'm not sure he was right about the issue. I suspect he wasn't, but but he was just so much better at it than me. And it was so bad. My mom was like, "Yeah, you didn't win that." And so,
hey, Mark, just for what it's worth, I've been there too with my mom. She's like, "That was not your best show."
Exactly. And since then, you know, Ben and I have become really good friends. And of course, we worked at CNN together. I think some of you have heard of that network. And
wait, can we just tell everybody that we have 3 ex-CNN employees on the show this week?
There's a joke here. There's got to be a joke. 3 CNN guys hanging out together.
Walk into a bar. But just, you know, Mark, I used to text Ben when he was like in the latter stages of his CNN insanity. I was like, dude, when are you getting out of there, man? When are you getting free of that place? You know it's crazy. You know they've lost their minds. He's like, any day now, man. And now he is like Andy Dufresne once again, getting out of the sewage drainage pipe to freedom. That's what it is to leave CNN. You escape the sewage drainage pipe.
If there would have been a Vegas odds, it would have been that I would have gotten the boot from CNN for sure before Marc Lamont Hill. When it happened, I was like, look, people need to get right with God because the rapture may be happening very soon. When Marc Lamont Hill goes down before I do at CNN, you know it's a bad day.
I did not see that one coming. Yeah.
Neither did any of us, Mark. Trust me. Neither did any of us.
And now Rick Santorum
he's gone now. Yeah,
when you look at the CNN list, I mean, Dana Lash got kicked off CNN for I forget who was. Rick Santorum got Ben. Who else? It's a great and storied people.
You got Rick. The list goes on and on. There's virtually no one. There was a Media Matters article that came out a couple of years ago that was like, here's the list of who we want to be fired at CNN, and I think the entire list has now been accomplished. So CNN taking their marching orders from those guys over there. But I laugh because I'm like, the only way you can keep a job at CNN right now is if you still hate Donald Trump and you hate every Republican that's elected right now in this country. If you hate DeSantis, then you might be able to get hired right now at CNN, but that's pretty much what's left.
Oh, and also, what's his name?
Jeffrey Lord?
Jeffrey Lord.
Jeffrey Lord, yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey. So anyway, a lot of people get booed, but all the best people, as Trump would say, all the best people get the boot or leave on less than friendly terms from CNN.
Or you leave because you're like, I need to get the hell out of here. To quote you, right? Like, you got to go, Ben. You got to leave. I
just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't show up and have the usual CNN ambush situation of they're like, hey, let's have right-wing provocateur lunatic Buck say, oh, Buck, be quiet. We've got a Democrat strategist who has intelligent things to say. Hold on, I'm the host. After a while, you're like, this is a pantomime. This is like kabuki theater. This is nonsense.
When I was on with Mark, I felt like they should just, like when you're doing Don's show, they should just introduce you as So, and tonight on the right, we're going to have a racist, bigot, homophobe, xenophobe, anti-LGBTQ. Our regular Buck Sexton's joining us tonight. That's like how they should have done the intros.
They let you guys actually go at it, by the way, which I would say this is, I was actually just talking to a mutual friend of ours, Ann Coulter, about this over the weekend. There used to be, and this is one of the unique things about the show I do with Mark, we're not really debating. We're just sort of talking about things, but I view it as like I get a peek behind enemy lines. I'm like, what do like what do intelligent left-wing people actually think about these different issues, which is great, because then when the psycho libs come at me all week, I'm like, I've already had the Mark Lamont Hill version, buddy, so you're not going to penetrate with this. But there used to be debates, and you two, Ben and Mark, you guys were a part of when cable news actually allowed people to debate issues.
So look, we should pull back the curtain here, Mark, and I think we can tell the story now. Mark and I actually had a meeting, and I think we were very close to actually having a TV show together at CNN. We're talking like Jeff Zucker and who else was Amy, I think, and Tellus was in there. Yep. And it was Mark and I, and this was before the, spawn of Satan, anyone that's a conservative and likes Donald Trump or anything he ever says is going to go, away. And I mean, we walked out of that meeting. Wouldn't you agree with me? I thought genuinely, okay, we're going to have a Mark Lamont Hill, Ben Ferguson grand debate show. They liked that idea. And that's back in the good old days when people could disagree, have a grand debate about the issues. I think it's what got all of us into TV. And look, there used to be genuine friendships outside the green room or inside the green room. I mean, that's how all of us met. And nowadays there is, you walk in there, you're not welcome. If you're me, at least you're not. If you're Buck, if you believe what you believe, that didn't happen. It didn't used to have that feel. And I think you would agree, Mark, even when you were at Fox and I was at Fox, you were welcome. It was normal to see people you disagreed with in the green room. There was I think a want and a yearning for a grand debate, and we have lost that in many places in cable news now. It's really sad.
Yeah, there's no space for the kind of dialogues. And I hate to sound like the old man that's like, in my day it was different. But honestly, I started doing cable news 17 years ago, and I mean, it's a very different game. I mean, Fox News is Fox News, and obviously I've had the ambush situations at Fox News. I mean, at Fox, I'm debating the guest and the host 99% of the time.
That was my 7 years at CNN you just described.
Exactly. That's what I say.
Yeah.
It's the inverse of what you guys are talking about. But I think that even then there was a time on all the networks for dialogue, and you could have an unpopular opinion to some extent. You could be provocative. You could do things that now are so narrowly constrained. It makes TV less interesting to me. I don't actually enjoy watching cable news. There was a time where I actually enjoyed watching all the networks, and now I just don't. And I mean, in terms of the behind the scenes thing, I think you're right. I mean, I worked at Fox for years and had friends there. Obviously I'm not going to be friends with the racist, homophobe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there are people who see the world differently than I do, who I hung out with, who I spent time with, who I went to baseball games with, and people sometimes found that hard to believe.
Well, it doesn't happen really these days in media. I mean, there's no real crossover where you can. I mean, if you go on CNN. Look, I knew Rick Santorum's days were numbers. I was telling people, I was like, just wait. At some point,
he'll be next.
It would be on some. I didn't think it would be on an issue of Native American history, but at some point, I thought it would be, he would come up with some social conservative, because he is on some social conservative issues very conservative, and I figured that they would just get him at some point, and sure enough, they got him on something, but really. That just tells you how far it's fallen, because CNN was supposed to be the place where you would. I mean, MSNBC, I think, has honestly more, at least alleged Republicans on, although they're all never Trump Republicans. Than others. But I don't want to make this. I don't want to make this just a discussion about them. But you get three media guys in a room, all of whom have worked at CNN, all of whom are very happy to not be at CNN anymore, and this is going to come out. So now this is where I get to do what Mark did when he had his good friend Brianna Joy Gray on, when I just get to say, Ben, go get him. Go tell him all the things. Go tell Mark all the truth.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say is if you look at this country right now and how divided this country is politically, you got to look at cable TV and say, did they help create this where there is no room for compromise anymore? There's no room anymore for some sort of even respect of other people's opinions. It's now we want to seek out people that disagree with us. We want to cancel them. We want to destroy their lives. I remember, Mark, obviously you and I disagree a lot, but did I not call you the day that it hit that you were gone from CNN going, dude, what happened? Right. I'm so sorry. I love working with you. I don't like it that this is happening. If it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody else. We are now seeing that happen in this country. And I think it's a cautionary tale about where we are as a country right now, that there are so many people right now that if you disagree with them, they literally want to destroy your career. They want to ruin their career and they want to jump on your grave. They want to hurt your pocketbook. They want to destroy your business. And they're excited to do this. And I think that's something we've got to get back to, a grand debate in politics where we can actually have debates. You know, I look at Bill Clinton as a guy that I remember him when I was younger, being from Memphis, Tennessee. He's right across the bridge, right? He's a Little Rock guy. But even Bill Clinton, he understood after he got his ASS handed to him in 94 with a contract with American Gingrich. He understood, okay, I need to work together with some Republicans. I got to get some victories, even if they're with a compromise, so that I have a chance to get reelected. And Bill Clinton was a guy that understood that, and he made good friends with people in the Republican Party. Look at where we are in Washington right now. There is no one on the right and the left that are really even cordial to one another right now. If you're not tweeting at somebody how stupid they are, how much you hate them, then you lose street cred, whether it be the squad and the AOCs of the world, or whether it be the extreme right that we're seeing right now that's happening with Matt Gaetz and others. I mean, there is no compromise, and that's the only way I think you move forward in this country is if you have to, because we're never going to agree on everything. But when I look at this country right now and I see this divide, and I don't like it. I don't think it's healthy. I think it is a abusive relationship that the government has right now with one another. I'm talking about conservatives and liberals, Republicans and Democrats. I think cable TV has done everything they can to make sure they divide this country on those, especially places like CNN. And now it's interesting. You look, there's a lot of people, I think, fatigued. Look at CNN's ratings right now. And I mean this from an analysis standpoint. They got rid of the evil man they wanted everybody to hate that people love to watch, right? The ratings were great when you hated on Donald Trump. You got rid of him. And you could argue you won. And now they've lost, 60, 70% of their audience in prime time. You got Cuomo, who's having to come out apologizing for doing these phone calls with his brother, trying to help his brother save his job with all these accusations. But he keeps his job. I mean, this is where we are with journalism today. It's honestly shocking and kind of disgusting.
So here's where we're going to disagree on a few places, which is the fun part.
This is normal.
It's kind of what you guys do, I think. It's what we do and what you do. But go ahead.
So right. So part of it is I do think that there has to be room for compromise, but I do think it's also okay to hold a line and say some things I can't compromise on because they're non-starters, and there are times where those non-starters may be different for each person, right? It's like
me. I'm never going to support your Phillies. I get it, right? I'm never going to forget that the Eagles are never ever going to be my team, right? That's where I hold the line, Mark.
I think that's a solid line to hold. You're a Cowboy fan, right? And because my team has won a Super Bowl this century and yours hasn't, I think you have a really tough position to hold there. But if you think about like something political, there's a way that, for example, if I were a pro-lifer, there's no compromise on that for me. It's a non-starter issue, right? Because I have a fundamental belief that any kind of abortion is troublesome, right? So that's something I'm not going to compromise on. Similarly, there are issues like, for example, when I hear a Rick Santorum, he's a good example, and take CNN off the table for a second. For me, if I have the belief that Rick Santorum has consistently said things that are racist or misogynistic or homophobic or what have you, then I don't have a problem with someone saying, I don't want this person on air. I don't want to watch a network that has him on. But I think the answer is to vote with my remote control. I don't have to watch when he's on, right? And I can make
you're not trying to get him fired from his job. You're saying as a viewer, if you don't like Buck Sexton or Ben Ferguson, I can turn the channel.
I can turn the channel.
That is totally different from where we are now, which is now it is literally you have these political operatives that are being paid and these organizations being paid. And I go back to Media Matters because they're a perfect example of this, where they actually go out to make sure that someone can't make a living anymore. That's just not what makes this country great.
And so the question then becomes, is there something you can say? Is there something you can believe that should make you not worthy of a job? And that's where it gets tricky, right? Because if someone were to go on television right now and say things that were just flat out anti-Black, racist, flat out anti-Semitic, I'd say, as a company, I don't want this person representing me, right? I don't want to employ someone who does that. The slippery slope is that when you start going from this sort of clear, the clear lines, right? Like this, somebody says anti-Semitic stuff, somebody says something racist. That's a very clear thing where I don't want that. Where it gets slippery is when the person says something like me, who has a critique of the state of Israel, but is absolutely against anti-Semitism in every turn, where they can say, well, I think that's anti-Semitic and I don't want him on the network. Or I think that Buck Sexton's position on welfare reform or Ben Ferguson's position on the 1619 Project is racist, and therefore I don't want the network shouldn't have a racist on. And so
but isn't that what's happened, Mark? Isn't that where we are? I guess you're articulating the point.
Yeah, and I'm saying that we have to figure out, I'm saying we have to redraw the line, but I don't think we want to go back to a place where anybody can say everything, where networks are white supremacists either.
Let me ask you this, because I look at, I feel like with the Republican Party, we do a better job of kind of like abandoning conservatives that are all of a sudden become unpopular because of one thing that they say. I think we're kind of cowards in that way. I think Democrats do a better job of defending sometimes people that just screw up or things are maybe indefensible. Are you concerned, though, at all that the Democratic Party has literally lost its kind of center point here when you have people like Lamont and AOC and others that are out there pushing such extreme views each and every single day, where there doesn't even seem to be a moderate place anymore for a liberal in the Democratic Party? For me, I see that as an opportunity, right, for conservatives to go in and win in some of these areas where they could win. But you look at Governor Whitmer, for example, in this weekend, she claims, we were all vaccinated so we could eat together. We just pulled some tables together. She shut down damn restaurants and ruined people's lives. And she put out her rules on the 15th and broke them on the 19th. And she shut down restaurants for months on end after they've been busted putting tables together and not having masks at tables. And then she jokes about it, says, well, they have really good pizza. Like, when you see that type of dictatorship in Michigan, you got to wonder, like, she's now vulnerable, right? There's an opportunity for a Republican there to actually win that governor's race, which didn't exist before this from her.
I think you raise an interesting point. And I do think that people who take hard positions on either side open up a lot of space for moderates to come in and sweep them away. But I'm someone who takes a hard left position. I'm a Green Party member. I'm to the left of the Democratic Party. And I love that AOC and Ilhan Omar. And if you notice, when Ilhan Omar tweets, I say nothing but respect for my president. That's who I would want my president to do. So,
I love AOC too, because I think I've said this, please stop trying to get her out of office, because all she does, in my opinion, is help my cause as a conservative going, do you really want this in charge in this country? And I keep telling you, this is the Communist Democratic Socialist Party. I love AOC. I'd give money to her campaign just to keep her in office.
Yeah, I wish it were as communist and socialist as you all say that it is. But
y'all are working hard. Don't undercut yourself, Mark. You guys are doing one hell of a job.
I am getting out the popcorn
of turning this
here.
country into like a hardcore
show,
socialist country.
This should have happened, but keep going.
No, but let me circle back to the point I was going to make earlier, which is that this idea, and this is something that conservatives do that drives me nuts, and Buck and I have talked about this. Conservatives often talk about cancel culture and this idea that it's liberals going around canceling people. And my frustration with that argument is that conservatives are canceling the hell out of people. And what I find is that everybody on both sides of the aisle are canceling people, but somehow...
All right, got to give me examples. Give me an example of where we're canceling people.
What institutions do conservatives control that give them the ability to cancel people for
Who have we
thoughts
canceled?
or wrong thing. Yeah, like who do we cancel?
Okay, last week, Nicole Hannah Jones was denied tenure at University of North Carolina, right? She was hired, given the job, and then the board, which is deeply conservative, and it was a result of conservative write-in campaigns and people pushing, said that she should not get tenure. Why? Because of the 1619 Project, because of concerns about critical race theory. So her political position, her and the writing that she's done made her ineligible for a faculty job when the very purpose of tenure is to protect you from
right.
being,
Well, but she obviously didn't get the tenure, so she wasn't protected, right? So that's how that ends up happening, which you know more about than I do, actually, having taught at university level. But Mark, I mean, wasn't that because of, as I understand it, the most eminent historian of the revolutionary period from Brown University, I'm actually forgetting the guy's name right now, but he's a liberal, he's not a conservative. I believe it's Professor Woods at Brown, has said that there are some gaping historical inaccuracies in the 1619 Project, and that it's essentially a long-form editorial posing as history. And that
it's not history. It's a commentary.
Problems.
It's rhetoric. It's political.
So if she were hired in the history department, I think that'd be a legitimate concern. She was hired to be a journalism professor, to teach journalism. She's won a Peabody Award. She's won a Pulitzer. She's about to have a New York Times best-selling book. She's a MacArthur Genius Award winner. Her credentials for teaching journalism far exceed anybody else in that department. In fact, she has more awards than anybody else in that department put together, than the rest of the department put together. And so, yeah, the fact that you may not agree with her historical analysis.
Okay, but is she going to get a teaching job at Harvard now? I mean, let's be like, do we really think that this is the end of her?
But she'll make more money now and sell more books now because
this
she didn't get tenure,
this isn't cancellation,
which is the opposite of being canceled.
Now we're Buck and Ben double teaming. That's not fair. Go ahead.
That is not.
This is fun for me. It was 7 years I had to do the opposite. This is amazing.
The fact that she may get a better option is not the point, right? Just like that would be like saying that.
No, I think with cancel culture, it is the point though, because
it is.
She's not canceled.
Yeah, she's gonna get rich.
If someone is not allowed to have a media career, for example, because of their Republican beliefs, we would say they got canceled. The fact that they may have private investments or the fact that they can go work for another industry doesn't mean that they weren't canceled. If academia is its own industry, and if she can't get a job
Hold on. But Mark, you and I both know she's going to get another job teaching if she doesn't get tenure there, and she will get another job, and there'll be plenty of universities that will embrace her, and they will make her into a poster child, and they will use her for fundraising at that university. And she will lecture all over the country at liberal universities that will love to have her in,
as they should.
Again, I don't think there's any foul play here. She certainly didn't lose her career and not be able to get her career back, which is, I think, what the real definition of the cancel culture is where you try to take away someone's career where they can never work again, and that is the difference here.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's hard to know if someone.
Wait, she's being offered a 5-year term, guys, without tenure.
Right. So she's still got her job.
This is like saying that she didn't get $1 million advance. She got a $750,000 advance or a $500,000 advance. That's not cancel culture.
No, I think it is. Again, if we're defining cancel culture now as saying you have to like live in a gutter, then no. But if we're saying that
she's not living in a gutter, she got a 5-year contract.
She got a 5-year deal.
I want to live in that gutter, Mark. I want to live in that gutter. I can't get a teaching job anywhere because I'm toxic, because I'm a conservative commentator. But when was the last time you were asked to go to a liberal university?
I gotta let Mark, because we're not going to CNN him. We're going to let Mark get in here. Go ahead.
I wasn't comparing her situation to the gutter. I was saying it wasn't compared to the gutter, which was sort of my point, right? I don't think it has to be to that extreme for it to be a cancel culture. The idea of cancel culture is that people are being removed from positions. People are being taken out of the conversation. People are being denied opportunities. People are taking professional hits because of their beliefs, because their beliefs don't cohere with the dominant narrative. And in this case, in a conservative space, which is the UNC board, you have people saying that she is not eligible to be a tenured faculty member. And let's be clear here. part-time, being a 5-year contract and tenure, which is a job for life, are they're nowhere near comparable within the context of the university.
Well, I mean, she could get tenure after the 5 years, obviously.
She's
right?
not only tenure track; they don't even owe her a review process. It's not as if they're saying 5 years.
Welcome to the private sector. I actually like that idea. I don't think anyone should have a lifetime career except you're on the Supreme Court. And call me old fashioned.
Old fashioned. Tenure's been around as long as the university, so that actually would be being old fashioned.
And it's still a terrible idea. It is.
Hold on, but we can disagree with the idea. And if we said, look, we're going to get rid of it for everybody, fine. But we're talking about it for this particular person, tenure still exists. And what the university did was, and this is very interesting, they tried to blame it on her credentials. They said, well, she has a non-traditional background. I mean, they came up with every excuse to deny her something that everybody else in that department has. The last person who had that chair didn't even have a bachelor's degree. This is the context, right? So, all
right, but here, let me say this though. I understand your point, but let me respond by saying this.
Examples, and I can give you other.
Right? Examples. No, but let me. Let's go with this one. I like it. Okay, Buck, you and I. How often do you get called anymore to go speak at universities or college campuses?
Never, including my own
right,
alma
never.
mater, where they have people
I don't even get invited to go to my own journalism department at the University of Mississippi because I'm a conservative commentator. And Mark, I think you would agree with me.
Can I just say, when I was CIA Buck, I used to get invited to speak at colleges all the time.
But it's even changed. I mean, I had spoken at Harvard at the King School of Government 3 different times in like 2004, 5, 6, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you're a conservative on TV. Yeah, we don't allow that here anymore. I used to do college speaking tours where I would do 15, 20, 25 a year. The entire market dried up because you can't have money going to a conservative now. Mark, if you're a liberal, you are more than welcome on college campuses all over the country. You will never have a problem getting a speaking gig. If you're a conservative, they try. But hold on, wait, hear me out here. Ann Coulter's a great example of this. She's not welcome. Ben Shapiro's another example of this. He's not welcome. The Charlie Kirks of the world, they try to cancel them everywhere they go around the country. They have to have massive amounts of security. They have to pay for their own security. The list goes on and on. I mean, if you want to say that I should feel sorry for a liberal professor teaching something disguised as history that is actually not history, I'm not going to feel sorry for her because welcome to my life every day in every university in the country. I'm not welcome.
Okay, just a correction. She's not teaching the 1619 project. She should be teaching journalism. She'd be teaching journalism courses.
You and I both know it's going to infiltrate in the classroom. That's like saying that you and I could teach a journalism class and our politics wouldn't get in there. Give me a break. You and I both know our politics would get into the classroom. Because
we're not going to agree on Nicole Hannah-Jones. I think that's established, but I think Mark has made his point that, there are consequences that he thinks his own side can suffer unfairly. But I think when we start to say, okay, well, let's start looking at, and these are all anecdotal, there's no scientific way, but you also can't, despite what the social scientists will tell you, you can't really quantify a lot of this stuff. It's just a sense of what the unwritten rules are and how things actually play out. But I mean, Gina Carano, for example, was on the very, very successful Mandalorian show, and she shared some kind of I don't even really remember it. I saw it, but it was they made people in World War II, wear vaccine passports or something too. It was some kind of a Nazi vaccine passport meme that she shared. It's clear she really opposes the, look, do I think that it was, would I have shared it? No. Do I think that it was, but they fired her and now she's unhireable in acting in Hollywood, period. There was no can you say you're sorry or you're not? Gone. That's that's cancel culture for a conservative. And Mark, Ben and I.
Though, and let's be clear, because I don't want anyone to hear this I know you're not saying this, but I don't want anyone to hear this and think that we're suggesting some kind of conspiracy, because it plays into anti-Semitic narratives of cabals of power and such. But there are issues where where I think tensions are high, and it's much harder to get a second chance, right? And I think when you look at an issue, I mean, a good one is Israel-Palestine, right? I don't think that that's a right-wing issue per se, although I think the right tends to side with Israel far more consistently than the left. There's more diversity. But when I went to the UN to offer a critique of Israeli policy, I lost on every speaking engagement. I lost a CNN job. I lost book deals. And that wasn't the left doing that to me. So I think that, again, and I'm not saying the right was doing it to me. I'm saying that's an issue that I think cuts across party lines. So I think that it's not a left or a right conflict. My point isn't to say that the right's doing the canceling and the left isn't. I'm saying that canceling happens across the board, and we have to be mindful of it. And I think the way the right does it, it often plays out differently because of where power is situated.
Can I just,
let me ask you this.
Just wait, but I think this is important, Ben, and then I'll give you the floor to respond to Mark. But because I mentioned the Gina Carano tweet, I have it now in front of me. This is what she was fired for. Just to give us a sense, again, It was, quote, Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even children. Because history is edited, most people don't today realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that different from hating someone for their political views? Now, a very insensitive and poorly worded and, not something that
shouldn't be able to ruin. You shouldn't lose your whole career over that.
But that's the point is she's not anti-Semitic. She's trying to raise in an inartful, she basically said something very poorly, but her point wasn't trying to undermine, it wasn't anti-Semitic. It was to say that political hatred is too high now, and she lost her whole career for that.
It was insensitive, right? It was insensitive.
It was insensitive. That's true.
It was insensitive, and you shouldn't lose your career. You should apologize. You should say, "Look, I understand that there's not that this incident isn't comparable to a Holocaust any more than being forced to wear than mask mandates, for example, as Marjorie Taylor Greene said."
I wanted to clear that up because I thought it was a mask thing, but it wasn't. That's why I wanted to read the tweet.
Yeah. It's about
Mark. Let me ask you this though. When you got canceled, right? When you spoke at the UN and then the what hit the fan, was it you? Did you feel like you were under attack from the universities?
Yes.
Or was it more or less they were saying, okay, we're going to hit the pause button on Marc Lamont Hill. We're still going to do business with Marc Lamont Hill. We're still going to have him teach. We're still going to have him write books, but we're going to pause for a little bit, kind of let this blow over, and then we'll get back in bed with Marc Lamont Hill as a product?
I would say no. I would say it's the former. I mean, first of all, I almost got fired by my university, and I have tenure. They literally called me in and said I had to be reviewed by the board of trustees to decide whether they'd let me keep my job, even though they had no legal standing to fire me. Right?
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I had to meet with the board of trustees. The head of the board of trustees said he had never seen anything so repugnant or morally atrocious. Ironically, he's Bill Cosby's personal attorney.
Wow.
Innocent until proven guilty, Mark. Come on.
Right.
I think he got proven guilty, though, right?
Yeah. Well, after that, you can criticize, right? Yeah. But he needed a defense.
Yeah, he was in prison when this shit happened. I mean,
that's your boss, not mine. That's all I'm saying. That's who you work with.
Yeah. So when you have so universities weren't, and remember, I was there to give lectures, and it wasn't like this is too controversial. We don't want. It was groups saying that we don't agree with his politics and we don't want him there. Right.
I'm just curious. Did that lawyer guy who was your boss, does he have tenure?
No, he's on the board of trustees. He's not.
Okay.
He's on the board of trustees. So he's the person who votes on tenure, even though he has no academic expertise, which is part of the problem, right? The way that it's supposed to work is that the professors, the faculty, your colleagues, people around the world make an assessment. It gets approved by the university. It gets approved by the president, and the board of trustees just stamps it. Right. But what they've been doing lately is intervening on political matters, whether it's Steven Salaita in Chicago, it's Nicole Hannah-Jones at UNC, or whether it's me, and they're intervening on things that aren't in their purview because they technically can, but it's unequivocally, indisputably a political decision they're making, and about whether they agree with our politics or not. And I mean that's what I'm finding so objectionable about this moment. And I don't think it's a left or a right thing. I think anybody who has power does it. And this is the point I was making with you, Buck, a few weeks ago. When you look at the 80s and 90s, when you had groups that were trying to ban TV shows that had gay characters, I always bring up the Teletubbies example. People want to cancel the Teletubbies. When you see people writing in and saying, we don't want this person to play this role because they're gay in real life, right? These writing campaigns, whether it's the moral majority, whether it's people trying to stop hip hop music, rolling over CDs, and I'm talking about the left, C. Dolores Tucker, Tipper Gore, and the right.
You mean you didn't destroy your Dixie Chicks album?
There was never like You never had like the biggest talk radio host in the country saying to conservatives, "We can't have the Teletubbies." Like, I mean, these are fringe. Like, I feel like there's a false sense of equivalency that's creeping up. It's interesting though, because you dealt with actual, you personally, Mark, dealt with actual consequences of what could be deemed a cancel culture situation, right? You've actually dealt with it. Very few people on the left have that experience in a way that's comparable to what you see in public in public life on the right. So while I'm not saying it doesn't happen, clearly it does happen. I mean, when you're talking about
you and I saw each other at CPAC. You were on a panel right after my panel. My panel was about big tech and censoring of conservatives, and I spoke out about big tech and what they had done with conservatives in the New York Post article. Before I landed back home from that weekend at CPAC, my Facebook page was taken down. 1.2 million followers, and it was gone because I spoke out against big tech.
Did you get
that? Is something. No, it's still, go look at it right now on Facebook. You cannot find my page. And it's clear because I was speaking at CPAC on big tech.
Yeah.
And they said it was inauthentic behavior. But not only that, they actually came now after my barbecue restaurant, saying that they're threatening to take down my barbecue restaurant page, which has nothing to do with politics. And it says, because of, quote, inauthentic behavior, we've asked for a question like, what did we do?
What does that even
They
mean?
will give us no response because they said every account that was connected to me, they basically hit all of them. And if you go on Facebook right now and put in Ben Ferguson, you cannot find our page with 1.2 million followers, all because I spoke out against big tech. That's the problem I have in this country right now is I go speak at a conference about big tech and they prove my point before I land after leaving from the event. It scares the hell out of me that these guys have this much power, which is, by the way, I think one of the things that Ron DeSantis said today, it'll protect people like you, Mark. It'll protect people like me, saying if you shut down somebody, they have the right to be able to sue. You have to be able to show probable cause. You have to explain why. There has to be consistency. But what he did in Florida today, I think protects people on the left and the right. Because I remember, you guys may remember this. I went on CNN, took a lot of heat because when they kicked off, what's the guy's name? InfoWars, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
And everybody was like, oh, good, he's off YouTube. And they kicked him off Facebook and they kicked him off Twitter. It was like all in a 24-hour period, right? They all did it together. And I went on TV, I think it was Don's show, and I said, you guys better be careful what you're celebrating right now, because if they can do it to him, they can do it to any of us. And they're just seeing if they can get away with it in an organized big tech way where you can literally completely delete someone's life work. Now, I'm not defending what Alex Jones says. I think the guy's a tool. I think he's crazy. I think he's a scumbag. I think he's a con artist. And I've said all those things to his face. I can't stand the guy and what he does. But my point is, if we are truly a free country and we're supposed to have freedom of speech in this country, and you can delete an entire person's life work and do it in an organized manner across all platforms, same way we've done with the president of the United States of America. The fact that Donald Trump was taken offline while he was the president of the United States of America, even from having a Shopify store, it is insane that Donald Trump can't even sell golf balls on the internet right now when he was the former president of the United States of America. That is insane. But then again, you look at it, you go and speak against them, they will shut you down in 12 hours after you get on your plane.
Mark, let's let you have a rejoinder here to Ben. I'm enjoying watching you two go at it, of course.
No,
and then why don't we wrap it up for this week?
Yeah. And we can keep the conversation going, hopefully we can keep this conversation going because, there's so much to cover that we didn't even get to cover this week. But I agree that deplatforming people should not happen, except under the most extreme circumstances. I happen to believe that Donald Trump satisfied the conditions for those extreme circumstances. But so we don't relitigate the Donald Trump incitement conversation, let's take him off the table for a minute. I think in general, if it is a public square, a public sphere, and we have the opportunity to debate, then all opinions should be welcome, even shitty ones, right? I think if it's a private community, people have a right to say who they want in their community. I think the tricky part is, while Twitter and all these places are technically private, they've taken up so much real estate
They're monopolists, basically, online.
Yeah.
They're monopolists.
They're bigger than any publishing company in the United States of America, and Facebook has more influence, and Twitter has more influence than anybody else.
Okay.
We're on the same page. I'm saying they've taken up so much real estate that they're not just one option among many in the mall. They are the mall. And so we have to be honest about the role that big tech companies are actually playing in our lives and saying, look, Twitter doesn't have the ability to pick winners and losers or to exclude people simply because we disagree, because they're no longer a small thing. Clubhouse, maybe. If there's a white supremacist on Clubhouse, I might say, shit, let them go. I don't want to be on Clubhouse with white supremacists. But if Clubhouse gets so big that everybody's there and that the whole world exists within Clubhouse, then no, I'm going to have to suck it up and have some white supremacists there. As long as they're not doing something that creates active harm or has people storming a Capitol. Now, again, we may not agree on whether Trump is responsible for that, but if we did agree that Trump was responsible for it, I suspect we could agree that a penalty would be appropriate. So I'm happy to have that debate about whether he's responsible or not. But for the other 99.999% of people who say wild shit from any political perspective, I don't think that they should be eliminated from the conversation. I think that's where we agree.
So Ben Ferguson, everybody, check out the Ben Ferguson podcast. You can just download that wherever you listen to podcasts. Obviously, subscribe to What Do You Really Think? If you're listening, or actually, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should go to quakemedia.com/Buck or quakemedia.com/Marc. Either one. We just want you to sign up. Doesn't matter which one you go to. Doesn't matter. And our friend Ben Ferguson, thanks so much for joining us this week, man. We'll see you all soon.
Enjoyed it, guys.
Peace.